So I'm gonna be on here tonight. We're gonna talk about the ins and outs of opening the state, that and the situation that many of us are in right now. I know it's not a grand, awesome topic, but I do want to hear from y'all. So if you guys have something to say, even if you want to come on, because Friday nights and weekends are a little more informal, right? It's supposed to be fun. It's not gonna be as fun, I don't think, unless it's fun for you to watch a 50-year-old dude get really, really angry and start like kind of going off on ranty tangents. But ranty tangents kind of is where we're at, you know, talking through what everyone is experiencing, not just in Texas but in the States, especially in the bar business, is important. And I've learned that recently, talking to so many other people, because there's so many people involved in what's going on right now, and everyone's kind of in the same spot, trying to figure out like how to like steer their boat, and everyone's trying to figure out new ways of doing shit, when what we need to be doing is consolidating, at least to a certain extent, consolidating and talking about the same shit in the same way. So I got a little bit of that tonight. I will see if I can find some happy news for you. I did get new glasses. I'm not wearing them, so that's happy. And they got to be on TV the first day I had them, so that's happy too. So I mean, at least if you're in the glasses world. But I do want to thank you all for coming. I'm here every night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. It doesn't matter if I'm kind of on the road. Doesn't matter if I feel like it. Doesn't matter if I got shit to talk about tonight. I happen to, but I don't always. And I've been doing it since the beginning of the pandemic, so it's coming up on a year. Coming up on a year, imagine 500,000 plus people dead in the United States from something that shut down the country when one person died in the state of Washington. If you remember back to those days, we were all looking at infinitesimally small numbers compared to what we ended up seeing. Had no fucking idea how bad things would get. It's good to see you, bud. Good to see you. We had no idea how bad things would get, actually, just with COVID in the United States. No idea how bad it would get with the economy. No idea that this shutdown that we went on, which started in March, would last for over a year in certain cases. And you could say all day long, be like, oh, places are open. It's like, yeah, places are open for sure. People are going in them. But if you want to put things in context, COVID has killed more people than the entirety of World War One. The entirety of the Korean War, the entirety of the Vietnam War, all of 9/11. I mean, dwarfs 9/11. And think of the way that brought everybody together. Think of the massive things that came out of that. Think of how everyone looks at it now, and the sacrifice those people made who died. The sacrifice, but you don't look at the people who died here as a sacrifice. And you certainly don't look at it in terms of who's still at risk of dying now. I heard a statistic today, and I have not verified it independently, but it came from a good source, and the source was quoting a good source. So look it up yourselves if you guys want to be thorough about it. But line cooks in restaurants were at some of the most at-risk people of dying of COVID-19 as far as career goes. Line cooks in fucking restaurants. Think of all the people that they touch. Think of the food they touch. Think of the people, our people who they worked with, the bartenders and the waitresses and the waiters, and the bus people and all the people who like interact. Think of what a kitchen is, and think of the incubation that happened in those circumstances. I've been in conversations now for months, but lately, like today specifically, had one this morning with people in like South Carolina. There's a guy in Virginia. There was a girl in New York. There was a couple other people, people who are kind of in more activist channels dealing with legislation and lobbying and all this like boring shit that you think about when you think about policy. But policy really is what failed us right now. And policy is what will continue to fail us if we don't get our shit together and actually figure out some way to say words at the same time with other people. Like, I cannot stress that enough. And this channel is a very small thing, right? It's a small thing. It's a small thing that I do. And it is it's a comfort to a handful of you, and I'm glad that it is. And, it represents something to other people who say that they watch it, but they don't. But the fact is, you need to take this small thing and put it together with another small thing, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden you have a very, very loud group of people who can do all kinds of cool shit right? One of the things we can do is invade our policymaker space with our voice, put ourselves out in the circumstance that we cannot be ignored. And that is a way that we can at least force the conversation and force the public to look at what the fuck they have done to us and look at the situation that we as businesses, we as people, we as workers, we as Americans are in. And will continue to be in at least for the next 12 months, at the very least. Who gets to die? Who gets to be in a circumstance in which they're infected? Who gets to be protected? Who gets to be vaccinated? All of those things. So, opinions matter, but everyone's opinions don't matter equally. And as far as I'm concerned, if you have an opinion about how bars and restaurants are supposed to open and you don't work in bars and restaurants, then your opinion doesn't matter as much as people who do. And I want to say that and have tried to every single mayor, every single governor in the United States, every single county commissioner, all the people that are making all these fucking rules and that have refused to engage with the people on the ground saying, okay, how are we going to regulate your business so you can open and be safe and we can have an economy that still ticks, which is represented by specifically bars. When any city wants to show that it's like opening itself back again, the first place they go to is say bars and restaurants can be open again. And specifically bars, because restaurants in certain circumstances never really had to close. They might have had to close the indoor dining. They might have had to close the inside dining or like dining in at all, food to go, all this other stuff. But a lot of those places figured out a way to stay open and they were allowed to regulatorily. There are many, 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 many bars in the United States and all the people who worked at them that did not have that opportunity. But they want to trot us out now and be like, hey, look, we can do this now. And you have guys like Greg Abbott, who is the governor of the state of Texas, who wants to just drop in the middle of the floor like, hey, no mask mandate. Okay, hey, now everyone can be open with no restrictions, 100%. And let's see what happens to those people. I described what he did to us in May when they did the same thing, by the way, just sprung this shit on us. When they did the same thing to us, I described it as saying you did an experiment on the people of fucking Texas, of which I'm one. Now, and one of the people who opened his business and his bar trying to create a circumstance which it was safe because we were told it was necessary. And any cover we had to stay closed, we specifically, was gone. So all the people that I was supposed to pay money to, all the people who had been patient up till that point when we were all closed down, now they're just like, hey, guess what? You guys are back. So let's talk about that money you owe me. Let's talk about the ice machine that you need to pay the lease on. Let's talk about your rent. Let's talk about all these other things. And I had employees at the time. And I had people whose landlords themselves, places they lived, were saying, hey, you're allowed to go back to work now. Why are you not going back to work? Because we were allowed. Because we were told it was fucking possible. And we were told it was safe, and we told it was rational, and we were told it could happen, but it turns out that was not the case. And I don't know that it's better now. I don't know that it's better now, but I have not been convinced by what I've heard so far, and I certainly have not been convinced by the actions that were taken by any regulatory commission in the state of fucking Texas that said up until that point, which was, today? 2 days ago, Wednesday? Up until that point, all the people who said, hey, these are the rules, but you know what? The rules are optional. It wasn't optional for the fucking virus. It was not optional for the fucking virus. Over 50,000 people in Texas dead. How many people infected by COVID? And P.S., you got infected by COVID. You still don't know how much you're going to have to be dealing with that for the rest of your fucking life. We just don't know. And that's where we're at. So a lot of what we have tried to do on this channel is connect as many people as possible, you guys, and say, okay, what is it needs to happen? How can we proceed? And the big question I get asked all the time is like, well, what do you guys want? What do you guys want? You think we should just pay for you? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. But that's really not what I'm asking for. That's what I think should happen. How do you treat bars as if they're the cultural institutions in the United States that they are? How do you treat bars as if they're the county seats and the community centers that they are? Someone described bars today as secular temples. Be like, this is where community happens. This is where people come, not to worship as they would in a church, but to gather and to have the witness to their lives. Like all those big, grand things that we talk about that, you call Friday night and we call, basically our fucking calling. How do you monetize that? How do you put $1, how do you price a beer if that has to be in it too? How do you price a beer? I got Sierra Nevada right here, in a bar where I'm sitting right now. If I went down the street and there was a bar open, this would be probably what, $6? All of that is in the $6. That also includes the price of this beer itself. How much is it worth? Right now, I'll tell you what, if I could go down the street and go to a fucking bar, it'd be worth more than $6. I'll tell you that much. No one's got any money anymore, so they can't afford what it was worth. They probably couldn't afford it in the first place. So there's something about the shit that just doesn't work, considering what we actually do. And thinking about what we actually do, talking about what we actually do, and spreading that enough so for people to be able to understand what exists in their communities and what they actually utilize, the benefit they get from having us there. If you think it's better to have every place that has closed down open up with some fucking, fast casual fucking national chain operator in there, then you deserve the cities that you're going to have to live in. You fucking deserve those things. And the money will not stay in your community. That's not how it works. It'll go somewhere else. The money will not stay where it belongs. The support, the control. You can go to an owner of a small business and say, I think this should happen and I'm one of your people. And they will say, I will consider it for sure. Your voice is much, much louder in those small things. Not to mention the people in communities who open places like that in communities, not just businesses, but third spaces in general, places for gathering. It responds to the community itself because it comes from there. It has the benefit of the community at its heart, which you'll never get if every storefront is replaced by California fucking Pizza Kitchen. It's fine. And if it was just about people needing somewhere to go, it's fine. But, I have been in situations where that was the only place to hang out. I've been in situations where Friday night, you're like, fuck, we're going to Chili's and we're going to hang out at the bar at Chili's. Because that's all there was. And I will tell you right now, it sucks. It totally fucking sucks. So the definitions of your cities will change based on that stuff. The number of people who do this for a living has been reduced substantially. We cannot get back that brain trust. We cannot get back the people. So we have to start over. Everybody has to start over. And everyone who has to open a business right now understands what that's like, because we all have to go back and say, okay, shit, I got to open again. I don't know how, because I don't have a fucking staff anymore. I don't have a staff anymore. Maybe I can call back my old staff because they've all gone and done whatever they needed to do to try to survive. And maybe they'll be able to come back, but maybe they won't. And even if they did, it's like, we got to fucking start over. Everybody has to start over. And they want to drop it on us like it's a Christmas present. They want to drop it on us as if we should be thankful for the fact that we're able to go back after an entire fucking year of being without revenue. And they're like, hey, guess what? Thank me now because we're putting this on. You can just do whatever you want, guys. Good luck. Good fucking luck. We did 0 things to help you when you had to close down. 0 fucking things. And, and every place is different. Every county is different. Every state has different rules. Every regulatory commission has acted in different ways. If you were in New York, they were coming in with a fine-tooth fucking comb and going through all your shit and taking their fucking very sharp pencil and saying like, okay, violation, and literally ripping off a ticket and said that'll be $15,000. 15 grand. And felt good about it. And then the opposite that, under regulation, you look at the entire state of Texas and many places like Mississippi and certainly Florida, where they're like, hey, these are the rules, but think of them more as guidelines. Think of them more as guidelines because we're not going to tell everybody that they have to do it. We're going to leave that to you. You guys have to tell them what they have to do. And P.S., there's going to be places who choose not to do any of those things, and we're not going to have one fucking word to say about it. There were places during the biggest part of the shutdown, the biggest and the most egregious spread, when so many more people were dying, there were 0 hospital beds. Literally, like every medical professional in the city of Houston was begging people to do the right thing because they're like, look, we're so overtaxed. It's like, I can't even fucking go to sleep at night. They're putting people in mobile hospital beds in parking garages and bringing in fucking mobile morgues. Mobile morgues they were bringing in. And then you have nightclubs who are like, oh yeah, we're really a restaurant. And, you go in, you see what's going on. You see what's just going on from outside through a window or on the porch or whatever. And you're like, you guys are packing it out because there's nowhere else for people to go. And there's a bunch of people in there and they don't have masks on and you don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck. And the fire department didn't care. The TABC didn't care. Nobody fucking cared. What's up, Stacy? But it's a ranty kind of night, and Stacy's on right here. Stacy was one of the people that was with me when we opened the bar. One of the three of us, and four when Daniel came on. So we've been here before. We see what it was before, and right now, literally, we're looking at all these things that they're expecting us to be thankful for, because they're like, hey, now you can start earning your way out of this mess. And it's like, okay, well, it wasn't our fucking mess. It wasn't our mess, and we shouldn't have had to earn our way out of it in the first place, and we're certainly not going to be able to do it now. But thank you that I can open again. I'm not fucking going to. But and a lot of people are making choices. And I've been very, very proud of many of the places that I love in the city of Houston specifically, but a lot of places from around the country that, despite what their governors say, and I'm going to talk about Houston specifically right now. Places like Grand Price, places like Anvil, places like Two-Headed Dog, places like Johnny's Gold Brick, all of these places that are opening up again, putting public messages out saying, like, you guys are not coming in here without masks on. I don't care what the fuck that guy said. We are doing exactly what we've been doing, and we're not going to change it until we feel safe. But, talk about Grand Price. There already has been violence perpetrated against a bartender in that bar because that bartender asked a patron to wear a mask, and he got hit over the head with a fucking glass and ended up with like 12 stitches. It's not just like, hey, I believe science, and it's not a red issue or blue issue. It literally is about the safety of my staff and my clientele. And P.S. myself, because I have an eye on that as well. Is it safe or is it not safe? So yeah, the big question of the day has been, what's going to happen next? Like, what are you going to do? And so every time something like this happens, because of a lot of the shit that we did earlier, people will call me from the media. So I was just on CBS Good Morning yesterday morning, and they all asked the same question. They're like, oh, okay, like, what are you guys going to do now? Like, isn't it good? Don't you think some people will be happy about this? I'm like, yeah, some people are happy about it. But also, some people are really willfully ignorant, and some people are just plain stupid. So I can't help that. I can't help it if you're in really a small segment of society that doesn't want to participate in this. People who want to make up stories about what masks do to you, like some lung infection situation, which was really popular in the early days of the mask mandates. And some people want to talk about how their freedom is impaired by having to wear masks when they go into other people's private businesses, which is also people who really don't understand the entire kind of concept of what they're calling freedom, and certainly not the Constitution. They think they have constitutional rights to do whatever they want whenever they want. They think they also have some right to like push, to follow their flawed belief when it actually is a danger to public safety. So think of it this way, right? You could have people who don't believe that, that fire would knock down a building. They're like, well, yeah, the building was on fire, but it fell down. It was probably other reasons why it fell down. And they'll give you a long list of flawed reasons. They're like, well, yeah, it was on fire, but it fell down because X, Y, Z. Or they would say like, well, there's certain kind of people that are immune to fire. So and there's other kinds of people that actually fire is good for them. And so if you let people who believe things that just definitively aren't true influence policy, then you're in for the situation that we're in right now. Everyone knows people who have contracted COVID, and many, many people know some people who have died. And don't think for one second that because reported numbers have gone down that people have stopped dying. Thousands of people a day are still dying. Still. Yes, vaccines are here, but have you gotten one? Are you going to? If you have that possibility, then I recommend you do so, obviously, because the more people that we have that are in that situation, the more we can actually safely get back to work. But, they're talking about 70 to 80% of the population that needs to be vaccinated before we have some kind of handle on it. And that's not going to be until summer at the earliest. At the very earliest. And that's assuming that these same people who don't want to, have the freedom to not wear a mask, these are the same people who are putting out weird conspiracy theories. Like, oh no, that's like Bill Gates made that, so it'll turn you gay. I'm shocked to be saying these words, but there's people who believe that. There's people who believe that, and we have to listen to them, and we have to give them the same fucking voice and the same vote that everybody else gets. And they think, in a real sense, the people that Bill Gates has made the vaccine such that it will turn you into a gay person. You got your first dose today. I am so fucking glad to hear that, bud. I'm so glad. I got my first dose a couple weeks ago. I'll be getting my second jab probably next week, maybe the week after. I got to check. But yeah, and those of us, and also if you're in the hospitality industry in Houston specifically, NRG has said if you're in the bars and restaurants, you can get a vaccine. So NRGs at least go there, but do it, especially if you're gonna have to go to work. And that's the ideal. All of us need to go back to work, and that's fine. But keep in mind that when we do go back to work, it's not like everything's fucking wine and roses all of a sudden. We're in a big fucking hole. We've been in a big hole as businesses. So in a certain sense, it makes more sense for some people to go like, you know what, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to leave that behind. That's gone. Gone. And start over. Because at this point, you're like, what? What are you going to do? You gonna fuck up my credit? I haven't paid my full rent at the bar for over a year. And the fact that I paid any of it at all is a fucking miracle. The fact that they let me stay this amount of time is another fucking miracle. And that doesn't just go away. It's like, okay, cool. And then what about all the other debt you had to take on in order to stay open? And all the stuff, the government assistance, that was debt. That was debt that we have to pay back. The PPP, a whole structure that most of us didn't get to take advantage of. And its whole point was to employ people and give our employees monies to do what? To do what? Because at that time we couldn't be open. Now we can, but now all that shit's gone. What comes out of this new stimulus package really depends on what comes out of the Senate right now and what they can negotiate. What's the new thing? I don't know yet. No one knows what's going to happen. We have an idea of what it's going to be, but if you look at the flawed way that the first part was rolled out, we have to hope that a lot of those kind of things were fixed, because that first round of stimulus came relatively quickly. But it doesn't substitute for 12 months of being without revenue, and the clock is still ticking. It doesn't substitute for all of the stuff that like every day was a new shovel full of dirt out of that hole every fucking day. And now it's almost the anniversary. It's March 5th. I think March 15th was the official day that we in Houston shut down. So as we go through this week, city after city, you look at New York, you look at places in California like Los Angeles, San Francisco, you look at like other major cities like Chicago, you look at places like Boston, Seattle, like every day will be another day where it was announced, and we all paid attention. We're just looking, we're like, oh shit. Boston just shut down. Oh shit! Like Austin's shutting down tomorrow. Like we gotta run over there real quick and get all our shit and bring it back, because we won't be able to go to Austin. We didn't know anything about what was gonna happen next. That was a year ago, and in a sense, it's worse now than it was then. It's way worse, and we didn't think it could get any worse. We thought that was as bad as it was, because all of a sudden everything was just taken away. So all our revenue's gone, and we're just stuck there, and we didn't know. And we didn't know what to say to our creditors. We didn't know what to say to our clientele. We didn't know what to say to our staff. We didn't know what to say to anybody. We're just like, shit, we got to make it all up. And we don't know if, there'd be some collective fucking, just like every landlord would collude in the entire city to go like, fuck you all, get out of our places. We didn't know. We didn't know anything that was going to happen, but at that point, we were all in it together. And everyone was trying to figure it out. And everyone, at least to a certain extent, because of the gravity of the situation, was doing the right thing, which was staying home. It didn't happen in every place. It didn't happen in every small town for sure. But for the most part, especially as time went on, people were just like, okay. I mean, look at what happened with the flu. Last year, we pretty much eradicated the flu because everyone was obsessively washing their hands every time that they left their house and obsessively wearing masks. Flu cases are, I don't know if there were zero flu deaths, but there weren't very many, because it turns out that when you do one thing to try to keep yourself healthy and from a virus, it helps you keep yourself healthy from other viruses too. And these are days when people were like, streets were empty and cities were empty. You guys were, especially those of you who were there with me. You know what it was like in downtown Houston? It looked like a fucking zombie apocalypse. Waiting, having a 9-hour waiting list for some grocery delivery service just so they could bring you food so you could stay and have something to eat and drink for the next couple days. doing that over and over and over again for days and days and weeks. And then all of a sudden there's more information. And then just like, and this is the feeling that we had then. And then in May, all of a sudden they're just like, ta-da, you can open tomorrow. And we're like, fuck you. Really? It wasn't tomorrow. It was next week. But it might as well have been tomorrow. Just declaring it was over and declaring it to be like, okay. And people don't fucking know. People don't know. They're just like, governor said so. Governor said so, so we're going to do it. And now, you know what else the governor said? Now he said something even worse. He said, governor said no more masks. We don't have to wear masks anymore. Because I don't want to. I don't fucking want to, because my freedom is more important than the health of you and your fucking family. Every single person who works in the service industry in the United States has failed. Has been failed by policymakers, by large employers in some cases, but certainly by the general public. Because we, as the biggest sector in the market, we're the biggest private employer in the United States of America, second only to fucking government, who's not private, for one, and not a government, all government. Every city council, every paid member of the Senate staff, every federal government, all the way down to your alderman and your dog catcher. If you take all government workers, they outnumber hospitality workers, but not by very much. And we, the bulk of people in private industry, are literally considered absolutely disposable, because they're like, hey, guess what? Grocery stores are essential, so you guys got to go back to work. You know what? Bars are essential. Bars are essential? Okay. We're essential today. We're essential to you because you want to now hold this up saying like, hey, constituents, hey, world, hey, Republicans, hey, whoever's watching, like things are normal again. We're back. Business is back. You know how you can tell? Is because we're making bars open again. We're telling you can go in an unmitigated fashion, go back to the bars and live your life just like you did before. They're not making businesses put their fucking office workers back in their offices. All these major companies, especially major tech firms who have people working from home, they're not going to them and saying like, hey, you guys have to go back to your office, because those people can work and they can get shit done from wherever they are. We have to be in a space, which makes us most vulnerable and also most expendable. Because they don't give a shit. They don't give a fucking shit about whether we survive or not, because in essence, they don't really value what we offer. So they're like, okay, if those people die, then other people will take those jobs, and who fucking cares? It's literally what they said about bars. They're just like, okay, and which is not as important as what they said about people. But it's the same thing they said about bars. They're like, okay, all these bars are going to close, but someone else will go in there, and they're already there, so there'll be bars again. So what's the fucking difference, whether it's this person's place or that person's place? What's the difference? If Alice's Tall Texan, which has been in Houston, Texas for decades, now it's gone, and what, someone else is going to take over that space? Is it the same? Who knows? And honestly, who cares? Because honestly, a bar is a bar is a bar. What the fuck do you guys care, whether it's this person or that person? Can you go and get a Lone Star and a shot of Fernet? Probably not. Can you get a Lone Star and a shot of Jim Beam? Yes. Okay, great. Do you still have Jägermeister? Great. It's still a bar. Who fucking cares? Until the worst happens. Until they're gone. Until they're replaced by shittier things. And then you can kiss your tourism dollars goodbye. You can kiss your nightlife fucking districts goodbye. You can kiss the microeconomies that were supported by all those places. The relationships that exist. The numbers of people who relied on those places. You can kiss all of those communities goodbye and hope that you can start over with something that will still fill the same need. But it'll be hard. It'll be absolutely hard. And it's not the same. Just as it's not the same, and it's not worth the life of one fucking barback. Doesn't matter where that person is from. It is not worth the life of one barback. So other people can go out because they want to feel like things are okay. They want to feel like things are going to get better. Why? Ask yourself the question, why? Why, of all the people, and again, I'm still talking about Texas, we put together a group of people that was the 60 or 70 probably most prominent bars in the city of Houston. Everywhere from the super high-end cocktail bar to the super low-end dive bar. All the way through. A united voice of people that literally said, we're all here and we want you to talk to us so we can help figure out how to open safely in this mess. And they wouldn't say a fucking word, not a phone call, not a retweet, and certainly no policy discussions that allowed us to be part of the conversation about how to allow us to reopen again. It's real fucking important to be able to go on TV and say, hey, guess what? We can have bars open again. But not so important when every single one of those bars is begging you, Mr. Governor, begging you, Mr. Mayor. Please call us and let us help you with this. And no, because you're bars, apparently. And no one gives a shit which one of you is there. We just need to make sure that the tax revenue still keeps coming in. So you fuckers got to go back to work. Doesn't matter how people act in your place. P.S. We're not going to help you at all remain safe. At all. We're going to tell people generally what should happen. And then we're going to tell them it's optional. And in this case, Governor Abbott had to he even went a step further, which is ironic, where he said, hey, guess what? No mask mandate. P.S. You guys still have personal responsibility is still a thing. Personal responsibility is still a thing. So, make sure you do the right thing, everybody. P.S. You don't have to wear a mask anymore. And everyone's like, which one is it? Am I personally responsible or do I wear a mask? Because personal responsibility doesn't include public fucking safety, and it never has. It never once has. If you want to get drunk and drive in your car, it's not personal responsibility that keeps you from doing that. It's the fact that if you do it and you get caught or you hurt someone, you're going to go to jail and you're going to lose your license. It's going to fuck up your life. If you didn't do that, people would be like, oh, if it's just personal responsibility and no one's really going to enforce it, then what's the real risk? What's the real risk? I think I'm a better driver when I'm drunk. I think that it's okay because I only live down the street. I think that it's my choice. It's my car. It's my body. So if I want to fuck it up and get in the car and wrap myself around a telephone pole, it's my fucking choice to do that. And you're like, okay, that's fine, kind of, except for the fact that telephone pole might be a bus full of fucking nuns. It might be a school kid walking through a crosswalk. It might be, anybody that's not you. So no, personal freedom and public safety are mutually fucking exclusive. You don't get an opinion. And we in the bar business know that intimately because personal, like public safety is our first job. You can't just say, I was asked this by the lady who interviewed me for the TV thing. She was like, well, or her producer or somebody. And they're like, well, how do you jibe these two things together? It's like, well, your business is, to show people a good time. Your business is the customer is always right. And I was like, not really, but okay, I know what you're talking about. He's like, how do you jibe that with this idea that you also have to be able to tell people no? And I'm like, look, man, like our job, our first responsibility is not to keep the party going. Our first responsibility is that we create a safe environment to have that party. And then we want the party to happen. Then we want people to have that experience they want. Only after that first part, which is public safety, is maintained. Because if we don't do that, then we can't stay open because people will fucking die. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. And it's hard to say this without words like die. It's hard to say that without words like risk. But those are real words. And we think about them all the fucking time. We have to. Because I don't know where you guys work, but it's probably not super fucking common that some fucking random asshole is going to walk in there with a gun who's been drinking too long and decide that he wants to put it on the counter and all of a sudden it goes off. It's probably not super common that some fucking religious nut is going to come into your place with a gun and decide he wants to make a statement that makes, and all his incel buddies can hear about through whatever network they have and decide to go shoot up some random nightlife place in some city or some state. It's the bars. Anytime you see that shit happening to a bar, I tell everyone around me, I'm like, it could have been us. If it happens to one of us, it could have been us. We just got lucky. It happens all the fucking time. And this is why you have things like the 51% rule, which means you can't have guns in the same place you have people drinking, even in the state of Texas. Exactly for that reason. Another thing that you're like, well, what about personal responsibility there? Why is it different? Why is it different? And P.S., were there 500,000 gun deaths in the United States last year? The answer is no. COVID did that. And it continues to do that. And we let people in there, and then we have to have the negotiation with them. And the fact that it's a negotiation should not be the case. It should not be the case. And that's what happened when Abbott took away the mask mandate. What happened was he said, we're taking away the mandate. We're going to tell people to do the right thing, but we're going to let them decide what the right thing is. P.S. You businesses can make whatever choice you want, because it still is. That's the actual freedom we're talking about, by the way. If you want to talk about freedom of speech, if you want to talk about freedom of expression, that shit does not exist within the marketplace. That's not how it works. Your First Amendment right to say what you want to say means the government cannot curtail you from saying that. It does not mean that anyone else can't curtail you. So in my private business, the first right is mine. I get to say what happens in that place. And if I say you have to wear a red dress to walk in the door, then you have to wear a red dress, whether you want to or not. And your choice is to not go in if you don't want to do that. But we get to have these maskless people come right up in our faces and want to spit on us on purpose and yell at us and tell us like how they want this or they want that or they should be able to do these things. And I'm like, you guys are acting like fucking children. The worst kind of children. You're acting like the children who are just big enough to really be able to hurt other people, and they don't really care what happens to other people, because what about me? What about my stuff? You have a right. You got a right to do fucking nothing. Except, and your freedom of speech is literally defined by the fact that the government cannot say you can't say X, Y, or Z unless it affects public safety, in which case they can curtail that speech, P.S. So all of these things are kind of like, they're all mixing up in one big soup. And at the center of it, they put us, and they're just like, good luck, everybody. Good luck. We're gonna get all these people riled up. We're gonna send them to you. I hope that they do the right thing. I hope you make them do the right thing. We're not here to help. We're not here to help. Go out and make that money, because P.S. you need to pay all your landlords, and you need to pay all your taxes, and you need to pay all that stuff. Get back to work. I hope you don't get sick. But we really don't care, because if you do and you die, there's plenty of other people right behind you that'll fill in. So it's not that big of a fucking deal. Your kids are not at risk, Governor Abbott. Your shit's not at risk. And you don't have to do that, because you're like, okay, you're a better type of person because you get to be a governor. You can fuck off. Abso-fucking-lutely. The value of human life is more than any business that I can name. 100%. I wish that sentiment were echoed by all the people who love human life so much before it's born. They want to protect it so much before it's born, but as soon as we actually get out into the world, then it's like every person for themselves. Great. Because if you want to talk about whataboutism, it's like, all right, what about this? What about that? Be like, well, what about my life? What about the life of my daughters? What about my sick ass dad? And that's just one person. What about all the other people? How many chains have been broken in this certain circumstance? And where are they broken? Who's bearing the burden? Oh, yeah, I told you the rant. It's just a ranty kind of night. But there's hope. There's hope. And there's also, there's an opportunity in a certain sense to be able to kind of look at the total breakdown of traditional structures in what we do for a living, and in what the bar community is, and how cities relate to their bars, all of that stuff. There's an opportunity to look at, reevaluate all those things and say, is there some way that as we claw back up to where we might have been before, and as we repair, and as we build a new structure in which to operate, is there an opportunity to fix some systemic problems that we've had going, in the past? And yeah, there totally is. It's just really hard to fucking do that when every moment is a struggle. Every moment is a struggle. We were struggling so hard to survive last August. That was a low point. We were struggling so hard to survive last October. That was a low point. Last December, another low point. Turn of the clock, new year, low point. Now we're in March 2021. This is the lowest point of all, and we're not at the fucking bottom. And one of the lowest points we're going to hit is when we realize that we have to reopen when it's not safe to do so. So remember that. Remember that. Everyone right now is saying like, oh, one thing you can do is you can go and support these bars and restaurants. And that's true. You can do that. By all means, go on their website and skip Uber Eats and go straight to the place and get food to go and get their cocktail. Like, do all that stuff. But don't in any circumstance think that anyone there is okay, because no one is okay. No one's making enough money. Everybody's working 3 times as hard as they ever did. There's plenty of people that we know and love, our friends, our coworkers, people we've worked with for decades who have been unemployed since last year. Talk about barely getting by, talking about surviving, talking about trying to do those things. We're okay. We're not fucking okay. Just because we can sell people burgers to go. P.S. We did not fucking design these places to do things to pivot out of those places. Business models don't work that way. So yeah, we have to do what we have to do in the meantime to get from one place to the other. But we need to get back to the place that we built these places to do in the first place. Certainly for the economics of it, certainly for the business sense of it, but also for the community sense of it, because it will get to the point where we will be able to come and gather again. Where we gather, in what circumstance, and what we're going to do is fully dictated by what happens between now and let's say this coming August. That's probably like the big thing, because once autumn hits and once you have, more than 50% of the population vaccinated, then we can talk. But talk about what really becomes the question. How are we going to do it again? How much is everything worth now to anybody? How much is it worth to be able to go sit in a bar with your boyfriend or with your girlfriend or with your wife or with your husband and sit there and be like, hey, let's just get out of the house and go and sit at the bar? How much is that $6 beer worth now? Because you know that you can go to the grocery store and buy it for $1, but you could always do that. And you've been drinking that fucking beer in your backyard and in your house, binge watching WandaVision and doing all the things that you've been doing. And everyone needs for just their own mental health to like get back to it. We as humans were not designed for this. Our society is not designed for it. Yeah, we can play video games all day long, but even that, after a while, you're just like, I still need to go out and do these things. Why? Because we're people. That's how we're made. And that's why those of us who are in this business, despite the fact that we've always been considered, how people have shown that they consider us now replaceable, expendable, less than, more respectable things to do. So yeah, you can be a blood-sucking lawyer and everyone's like, ooh, he's a lawyer. But you can be the fucking best bartender in the fucking world and everyone's like, he's just a bartender. It's like, okay, cool. No one gave a shit up until now because it didn't matter. I can make plenty of money, more than many lawyers, doing what I do because I'm really fucking good at it. Until there's a pandemic and you take away the structure of the entire thing, and then everyone's like, maybe you should have gone to law school. I'm like, great. Maybe I should have. But you know what? I didn't. I do this. And I'm one person. There's 700,000 bartenders in the United States. 700,000. And next time you hear some industry fucking whinging about how their 15,000 workers are going to get laid off, I'm like, welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. 700,000 underemployed people in the United States. There's 350 million people in the United States. Do the fucking math. 65,000 bars in the United States. Each one host of its own little thing, its own community of people. That matters. Certainly matters to those people. If you add them up, now you're talking about millions and millions of people, all of whom rely on this to be able to kind of get by from one to the other. That's been taken away, and it's had a massive effect that you can measure and you can see. You can ask people about it. You can hear about it. And you can choose to care or not care. Fridays are like this, Fridays are not always as ranty. There's just a few of us. Lots of bartenders are back at work. Stacey, I'm surprised you're not at work, actually, if you're still on. But, if it sounds like a broken record, it's because it still needs to be said, and that's just all there is to it. Literally is just all there is to it. So don't forget. Don't forget, there's plenty of people that you have, sat with that have helped you through some time in your life. You know, and those people all now are sitting in their homes or in some fucking bar behind plexiglass with 2 masks on or 3 masks on, you know, hoping against fucking hope that they're going to make more than $100 today, and hoping against hope that they're not bringing home an extra fucking side dish of fucking COVID-19.